Holy enormous front wheel, Batman! Hello there and welcome back to Build with the Boys. We've now got issue 10 of Hachette Batmobile Tumbler. Now, I know you're all probably exhausted and a little bit tuckered out from how in-depth issue 9 was. Oh dear. But in this one, look, right, so there is more to do, definitely. We are finally building the front wheel, the front tyre, and we will be attaching it to the turning arm. So it will be going on. So there's more to do in this one. But you know, let's hope we don't have many like issue 9. I'm sure we're gonna have more. But it is what it is. Let's move past it. At the end of this one, we'll be talking about Batman's first big screen outing in Batman the Movie from 1966, which is amazing for all the wrong reasons and amazing for all the right reasons. But we'll talk about that one at the end. If you haven't yet, please remember to hit the like button. It helps us massively. What helps us even more is subscriptions. If you hit the subscribe button, if you're not one of our subscribers yet, join our little family here and come and watch us build all kinds of weird and wacky things, including the Tumbler, which will be going all the way to issue 120, and we will one day have a very shiny, beautiful, beastly looking Tumbler. Let's get into it. Let's get this wheel built. Okay, so here's everything we get in issue number 10, and it is the giant tyre and some screws. We've got wheel cap in there as well. Now, not all tyres are created equal. There is a variance with here. So we have the wide tread on this side, and we have the narrow tread on this side. So we need to make sure that we get the orientation of this round the right way. So the narrow tread is going to go at the top, whatever that means. So narrow tread at the top, I know what it means, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take this part here that came with issue 9, and that's going to go in. So narrow tread is going to incorporate this one. So there we go. That just drops in there lovely like that. Now what we're going to do is go flip this one over, and we're going to line up the 3 holes with the holes in here. Now see if we can do this in one. Yeah, I reckon we can. Yep, there we go. No, he tried but he failed. Right. Wow, I just cannot get that to line up. I mean, statistically, there's only so many bloody ways it'll go in. No. Make a meal out of this. There we go. Right. So that one's in there. And now we're going to hold this in place with CM screws, and we are going to do it this way around. So we need how many? 3 CM screws. Now these are going into metal, so we are going to use the 3-in-1 oil method, which I've discussed before, because it would just make life a lot easier. Because you don't have to fight against any paint buildup or any metal buildup. This way you don't have to reverse in or blow swarf off or anything like that. Just go straight in, man. It makes life so much easier. You can get a bottle of 3-in-1 oil as well for about £4, and it will last you forever. I mean, like I think I've bought 1 bottle of 3-in-1 oil in my life for model making, and it's lasted me bloody years now. So yeah, you really don't need a lot of it. Right. Let's see if we can get one of these in. Yeah, it's kind of like a year's supply of Marmite, you know, 1 jar. Same thing. So for model making, one bottle of 3-in-1 oil will last you a really long time. And it's invaluable, man. It's one of those things I just wouldn't want to do without, because before the method was kind of screw in halfway, take out, blow swarf off, or, you know, just try and force it. And so once you start doing it with 3-in-1 oil, it makes life so much easier that you can't go back. Okay, so there's a second one in there. And then a third one finally, just to tighten this up. the end screws will be in. One more. We want to make sure this is held tight. You don't want later on down the road wobbly wheels, man. You really don't. There we go. Nice and tight, nice and done. There we are, all three in. Right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take over the arm that we've been assembling in 8 and 9. Kind of 9. We'll move past it, I will get over it, I promise you. And this is going to sit over here. Now we have to align this because there is a lug in here that we need to line up with this. So it will find its sweet spot, it will find its home, but this might be a bit of trial and error, I think, because we've got to find it blind, which isn't going to be easy. Now, see, this is me messing around with doing this. Let me find this and then we'll move on. Okay, so that's got that one in. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this washer here. I'm going to drop that into our hole there. And then using a single double AM screw, we're going to screw through the washer into the arch. And this should all pull together. This is quite a long screw, so I think it's going to take quite a lot of rotation to get it where it needs to be. There we go. So there we are, that one in. Now, mine's tight, right? So that's tight on the rotation. So you don't want this loose. If this is your first time building one of these, you're thinking, God, that feels really snug. The weight of the vehicle is going to more than compensate for how snug this is. If this is too loose, it's going to wobble around all over the place. You don't want wobbly wheels, man. You really don't. You want this firm. It's not a toy. You know, we rolling it down ramps and things like that. It's better to have firm wheels that rotate a little, you know. With the weight, it'll make a huge difference, because Ecto was like this. The wheels on Ecto were snug as hell. Once all the weight of the vehicle was on there, it started rolling lovely. And again, it's not a toy, so you're not going to be rolling it around. Now, the final thing it asks you to do is we have this wheel cap here. And it's asking us to pop that in there. I'm not going to, and I'll tell you why. Because on every part work I've built that's a vehicle, it always asks you to do this, then it asks you to fix the wheels, and then at some point later on, after you've done this, it asks you to take the bloody wheel off again. And when you've jammed that wheel cap in there, you can't get to the screw to do it. So you end up buggering the cap up. So I leave those off. Those little caps and hubcaps and screw covers, I leave off always. I always leave them off. I leave them off until the very end. They are the last thing I put on the model. So I would put them somewhere safe with your other bat bits, and yeah, I'd do it at the end. I genuinely would do it at the end, because I think that's going to be your best bet. But that's where we are. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring up the build so far, and we're going to see what this looks like, if we can kind of mock this up with this wheel on it as well. Oh, you pretty thing. I mean, what we can see from this, the orientation of this is not going to, I mean, this obviously isn't attached at this point. But this is going to, it's going to elevate, because this isn't right. This isn't how it's going to go. This is just a mock-up, which gives us an idea of what we're going to start to look like. That's not in the right place. That's just kind of in the sort of vicinity it's going to be. But this is it's all going to move and behave. But oh, you pretty thing. We can see where we're going, can't we? Oh yeah, it's lovely. Let's have a chat. So that gives you a bit of an idea of what we're going to look like. Now I can already see the orientation's off. So it's not gonna, the bulkhead's got to lift up and the wheels are going to drop down. So the cockpit can, I know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you do as well. Because the cockpit's not going to drag on the floor. So it's got to lift up. It's not all done yet. I would imagine there's support wheels or something underneath this as well. I don't know. But I mean, again, the steering will lock into place and it'll be fine. But that was a nice one. That was a nice build. So there wasn't loads to do in that one, but it's a lot more than the last one. It feels like we're achieving something now. It feels like we're getting somewhere. I'm starting to see the structure of this thing and it's starting to look great. It really is. So I can forgive 9. I can. Let's move on. Let's never speak of 9 again. I promise you. That is all for this one. If you are just sticking around for the build instructions, thank you for stopping by. Please remember to like and subscribe. It helps the channel massively, and your support is very much appreciated. We just love having you on for the ride. If you're sticking around for our Bat Chat, we are talking about Batman's first cinematic outing. We're going to go through every single cinematic outing Batman's had. We're going to start at the very beginning with the 1966 Batman the movie, which literally hit cinema screens 2 weeks after the last episode of season 1 of the 66 show had aired. Now, originally, the plan was to make the movie first. So they were going to make Batman the movie, then do the TV show. So the idea being that the Batman the movie would sell the TV show, and you'd have an automatic audience of this massive hit on their hands. Turns out they didn't need to do that. The TV show was a huge hit, which then sold the movie. The movie was a moderate box office success. It cost $1.3 million to make, which sounds like pennies these days, but this is 1966. And it took about $3.7 million at the box office, which was good for what essentially it was. I mean, it was a feature-length episode of the show. I mean, it's not like they throw a lot more budget at it. There is. I mean, there are two more vehicles appear in... three new vehicles appear in this one that never really transitioned into the show. The only one that did was the Bat Cycles. The Bat Cycle appears in this one for the first time. The Bat Boat appears in this one, and the Bat Copter all appear in this one. Now, it's a very kooky story. So you've got all of the villains are in this. So Riddler's in this, Penguin's in this, the Joker is in it, and so is Catwoman. The strange thing about this one is Julie Newmar had played Catwoman up to this point. She had a back injury, so couldn't make the film. So Lee Merriweather takes over. So Lee Merriweather plays Catwoman in this film, and I believe this film alone, because it goes right back to being Julie Newmar for season 2. And then season 3, Catwoman's only in 2 episodes, and that was played by Eartha Kitt. So Julie Newmar was always kind of the quintessential Catwoman. But she isn't in Batman the movie. She doesn't appear in it. But she kind of gets her day. We'll talk about that at the end. But the story is nuts, right? So it follows the same sort of method as the very now seen as very camp TV show, where the villains have found a way to dehydrate people. Literally, that's what it sounds like, right? So they just turn you into dust, but you're still alive. That's the weirdest thing. So no one dies, but they can turn them into dust. They keep in little vials, and they're going to turn the world's leaders into dust and hold the world for a hefty ransom. That's the plan. But the Cape Crusader is going to fall the day. Now, there are just some crazy things in this one, but I mean, just the opening sequence alone, if it doesn't grab you, nothing will. It involves the Batcopter, but also there's a scene where Spider-Man gets attacked by the shark. So if you've ever heard shark bat repellent, it comes from the movie. So he's got what's clearly a very rubber shark attached to his leg, and he manages to reach down to the belt and pull out a can of bat shark repellent, and it's convenient that's there, right? He sprays the shark with bat repellent. Now, if that isn't stupid enough, right, you're thinking, really? You just happen to have a can of shark repellent on you? If that isn't stupid enough, when the shark hits the water, it explodes. So he blows up like a landmine. And you're like, really? A shark's explosive? I didn't know that. It gets nuts. It gets crazy, because then after that, Batman, I think, crashes the Batcopter or falls out of it. But luckily, he lands in the linoleum exhibition, so he lands on the foam floor, and it's mad. There are other just nuts things in this. There's a scene later on in the Batboat where they're firing torpedoes at Batman and Robin, and they manage to dodge 2 of them, but the third one's going to hit them, and a dolphin sacrifices itself to save Batman. It swims in front of the torpedo and blocks it. So it's mad. But I mean, it's a good thing that all of these characters got their day in the sun. They got their time at the movies, and this is a good 23 years before the 89 Batman hit. And that caused some people to not have much interest in Batman. So the 66 show and the movie pretty much gave a lot of people a preordained idea of what Batman was. So everyone associated it with the dance and the Adam West's performance. I mean, famously, when they made a sequel to this, and this is where Julie Newmar came back, and they did make a sequel 50 years after this one, there was an animated sequel, Batman 66, where it's Batman versus Two-Face. Two-Face is in it with the original cast. So the original cast, Burt Ward voices Robin, and it's and Adam West voices Batman. Julie Newmar voices Catwoman, so she did get to be in a Batman movie. But when the story I heard was when the producer of this contacted Adam West and asked me to be interested. This is how kind of, he was a great, whenever you hear see Adam West interview with him, he was a great boy, but he was just an odd cat. When the producer phoned him, he said, "Hey, Adam, what's up?" And he said, "I was just feeding some meat to a dog." What a bizarre thing to say. I was just feeding some meat to a dog. Okay. For me, Adam West is Batman. He is his version of Batman. So when people say about who's the quintessential Batman, I don't think there is one. I think there are Batmans of their time. So I think if you have to look at the time period. No one else could have played Adam West's Batman. No one else could have done the 66 Batman. Adam West nailed it for a show that had that vibe, that look, that era, those stories. Adam West is the perfect Batman. You can't take Adam West and put him in the Nolan trilogy because that'd be mental. But in the same way, you couldn't take Christian Bale and put him in 66 Batman. Because when you've got Riddler, curses on you, Batman, you then have Christian Bale going, does he in jail? Gotham needs a symbol. It wouldn't really work, would it? It would be nuts, but you need Adam West. Damn you, Riddler. You need that. That's what you need for that one. So, and then when it comes to the 89, if you take that next iteration of Batman, so 66 is his own thing. We go to the next iteration of Batman, which was the Tim Burton movie started off. The Joel Schumacher movies finished it. Michael Keaton is kind of perfect for that one. George Clooney doesn't really live up to expectations. And Val Kilmer was all right. He did okay. So for that era, the perfect Batman was Michael Keaton, but you can't compare Keaton to Adam West, and you can't compare those to Christian Bale. You just can't. And then Bale was perfect for what he did. I mean, I would like to have seen Cillian Murphy do it. Cillian Murphy who played the Scarecrow, was originally auditioned to be Batman in those movies, as did the guy that went on to become Superman. Henry Cavill did audition to be Batman, and it would have been interesting. A lot of people auditioned to be Batman. It would have been interesting to see them, but. Going back to 66, because we'll talk about the other Batman movies on the day. It is a fun movie. If you take it for what it is a movie of the 60s, of that era, and it is before Batman comics became dark and gritty and hyper-real and bordering on horror and grimy and dirty, and they weren't like that. If you read the early copies of Batman, that is not what the character is. That is not what the character's about. It's a fairly fun heroes and villains comic. Joker does do things like he's gonna plant a whoopee cushion somewhere full of gas that's gonna knock people out. No one's murdered anyone. It's not like that. It's things, the Riddler will steal a diamond, but he won't just steal it. He wants to trick you where he is and lay these riddles out. And they did have the elaborately slow dipping mechanisms that Batman could escape from. And it's of its time. It's of its era. So you can't judge it by today's standards. You can't judge it by today's Batman. It's not dark enough. It's not gritty enough. It's not meant to be. It was a kid's show from the 60s. It had a badass car. Adam West just fully incorporated that role, just lived that role. And that is why I think he's a fantastic Batman, because I don't doubt every actor that's ever put on the suit and looked in the mirror, I don't think their first reaction, will be like, I look awesome. I think maybe now, but the first guy to put the Batman outfit on and look at himself in the mirror probably thought, the bloody hell am I doing? I'm classically trained. I should be doing Shakespeare. Now I'm wearing grey nylon and a blue silk cape but not Adam West. Adam West was like, I am Batman. And he lived that, and he never shied away from it. In later life, but he was kind of snubbed by Hollywood, which was wrong. He was typecast as Batman. It took a long time for him to get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which I think is ridiculous. They give those to anyone. But Adam West, they really had to campaign to get him one. And it wasn't until about 3 years before he died, he finally got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And it should have always been there. Because, again, before 1989, Adam West was Batman. Adam West was Batman just because they weren't making the show. Who's Batman? Adam West. And he was right up until Michael Keaton put the cowl on. And even now, he is quintessential. He is of his era. He is that generation's Batman. He really is. And I think he absolutely incorporated it. So if you've never seen the 66 movie, watch the 66 movie, but don't be expecting hyperrealism and don't be expecting some dark and gritty action movie, because it's not what you're going to get. What you are going to get is a very fun, camp, comic book movie, and that's what it is. And your kids are going to love it. My kids watched it when they were young and thought it was amazing because they're not watching it with cynical eyes. They're watching it with the eyes of the audience it was intended for, children. And they absolutely adored it. They thought it was fantastic. They didn't laugh at the rubber shark. They didn't look at the ridiculousness of the bat repellent and the lino convention. They just thought it was amazing. And it had all the villains in it. Watch it and love it because it is a great movie. It really is. And I encourage you, if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to track it down. It's a great one. That's all for this one. We will be back sooner than you think, even though they're saying 6 weeks. This one was slightly delayed. So they're due to ship the 5th of May. Now, you have to remember we're on a 6-week cycle now, not a 4-week cycle, a 6-week cycle. But these are due to ship the 5th of May, which means around about the 12th of May, we should start seeing them drop through letterboxes, I would say, ish. Unless they change that. They might change that date. But at the moment, the dispatch date is the 5th of May. So we will be back around about mid-May for issues 11 to 16. And I would imagine we are going to start growing significantly. I can give you a very quick sneak peek of what is coming in issue 11, because I know a lot of people have been asking that. And it is not a lot. So we know what that is. That means we're going to be attaching this wheel to the bulkhead. That's what we're going to be doing. So that's what comes in issue 11. So we are going to be attaching this wheel to the bulkhead. That is how that is going to work. In a world where you can be anything at all, just be nice. And we will see you later on in May for more of the Batmobile Tumbler. I'll catch you then. And remember, Gotham needs us.